Well, I came here as an intern in 1994, not really intending to pursue a career in opera. And what I fell in love with was not so much the art form, although I like the art form, but the process. And what John has done here, because he was here for so many years, not too long after we opened the theater, really created an open, collaborative process that was always changing, always asking questions, and I just really fell in love with that process and working with him. I think it's that sense of always asking questions, never checking something off the list. You know, John always says you never know if a wig is right until you get the orchestra in the pit. And that sense of getting everything together and looking at everything fresh every time and seeing what has changed because we've added this element and what else needs to change, and saying, well, what if? You know, in my work, my part of the theatrical production is the supertitles. So it's not like I say in my work, what if we paint that wall red? But having been around when John has said that at, you know, 11 o'clock after the piano dress and watching what can happen, inspires me to say, well, what if that line is different? I mean, it's on a different scale, but I think that always asking questions and always looking at what the other members of the collaborative team are doing and noticing the subtle shifts that makes and how I can help be a part of that. What did he do? John did everything. That sense of saying, how can this company be better, went beyond what happened on the stage. So yes, he designed his own productions here. He also was around for the other productions, and again, just saying, well, what if? What happens if? You know, he never said, I think it should be that way, but more, what if? What if we change that? What if, I don't know if I can come up with a specific example, but just really being almost another member of the collaborative team for every production, watching and thinking and asking those questions, and then taking that also to things like the marketing materials, to things like how we do galas. You know, can that be something other than a succession of arias? Can we make that a show? For John, everything I think that we did at Glimmerglass was a production, whether it was the program, whether it was a gala, whether it's the brochure. How can we put all of our minds together and do the most creative, most interesting thing? Not just say, well, this is how a brochure is done, so check. Well, John, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think for him, working with all of the young professionals at Glimmerglass was one of the most exciting things. John spent so much time with the interns, many of whom were aspiring designers. And I think, you know, it's twofold. On the one hand, I think that John feels a real responsibility to give back to the next generation. But I think it's also selfish because, as I said, John is such a collaborator. He is so open to new ideas, to asking what if. And I think when he asks an intern, well, what do you think? He actually really wants to know. And often, it doesn't matter where the idea or where the question comes from. John takes that in, and it helps make his work better. John brings this sense of rigorous playfulness to everything that he does. And I don't think that there is the line between work and not work, because I think he has so much fun with his work. But I think about things like the 4th of July parade here in Springfield. We have the longest running, or the second longest running 4th of July parade in the country. And he invested so much energy and so much joy into designing the company float for the 4th of July parade. But he doesn't have any less fun designing a Rigoletto. Do you know, it's that same kind of excitement. Like, how do we make this world an interesting place to live in? Maybe it's putting something on the stage. Maybe it's dressing up like a pirate and marching in the parade, which he did. I can get you a still of that if you can use it. Maybe it is painting the break room for the interns really bright colors. There was a time when, you know, the vending machine never worked, so I think he got the vending machine repaired. Anyway, he painted the break room many bright colors. We got a new vending machine, and he distributed 50 cents to every intern so that every intern could enjoy the new vending machine on his quarter. So just very playful and joyful and intense. John often looks like he's not engaged, but I think even when he is bored by a conversation, there's something going on. He was on the Opera America board, as you know, for many years, and I can remember there was one meeting where we were going over a strategic plan. The strategic plan was about 5 years old, and so we were going through to say, how have we done? And there was a lot of smugness around the table. There was a lot of, well, box office numbers are up, and there are more productions, and a lot of, yes, we have done all of these things. And John was kind of half doodling, half napping, and the conversation's going on, and John just looks totally unengaged. And then there was a break in the conversation, and he said, yes, but does anyone think the quality has improved? And that's very John, to ask the really obvious questions that no one's asking. I was helping out with a show that needed super titles that had not, the person that was supposed to write them did not come through. So John and I put our heads together. I was, 22 years old, and I sort of knew how titles worked. He knew the show very well. And I was a little bit terrified, a little bit in awe of him. As approachable as he is, he's John Conklin, right? And I was pretty quiet most of the way through, just helping out. But after a while, I got more comfortable, and I started to disagree with him about things. And I think that was really the beginning of our friendship. I think when I started to disagree with him, I think that's when he really got a lot of respect for me. So John was named director of production here when Paul took the City Opera job. And he was director of production both places. And so it was really about overseeing the productions. Again, being that other person in the theater for all of the rehearsals, just watching, saying what if, just keeping an eye on things, being another collaborator. I think he also had a large role in saying, what if we bring in this director, or what if we bring in this designer? So really advising Paul on what teams, what artists might be interesting at Glimmerglass. As time went on, and I don't remember exactly when or how this happened, but it was one of those things where John just started looking beyond the theater at the other things that the company was producing, be it marketing materials or galas or anything else, and just asking, what if? What if we did it this way? So at some point, his title went from director of production to artistic associate, and then associate artistic director. We have, for an American company, a luxurious amount of on-stage time. And what's really unique about it is that from that first on-stage rehearsal, we have most pieces together. That first on-stage rehearsal, we try to have all of the costumes. We are lighting. We usually don't have hair and makeup, but we really try to have all of those elements there, because for the lighting designer, their work changes if the performers are in costumes rather than street clothes. So that commitment to really having everything there so that we can see it and so that we can change it. I don't know of another company that makes as many changes during the stage time, and it drives some people crazy. I think it particularly surprises some of the singers, but the product is much better for it, again, because you don't know until you have everything together. And I think John really was committed to keeping that, to making this a place that is about process, and a place that at 10 o'clock when we come together after the rehearsal, if a designer says, I really wish it could be like this, creating a feeling of how can we get there? Or if we can't do that, how can we do this? Really racing against the clock to make the show as good as possible.